Last night on this show, our guest for the interview was a gentleman named Dan Stein. Dan Stein is president of the group FAIR, which helped write the new Papers, Please immigration law down in Arizona. It's just been amended by the state's governor. If you saw that interview last night, you might recall Mr. Stein telling me this.
First of all, we never gave that organization a dime.
We didn't give that organization a dime. I was asking him then about FAIR's support for a group called Protect Arizona Now. Dan Stein told us point blank last night, quote, "We never gave that organization a dime." Should be noted that Mr. Stein was lying when he said that. If you go to his own organization's website, you'll find a press release which quotes Mr. Stein, Mr. "We didn't give them a dime," saying, quote, this is great, "Every dime that FAIR and these other organizations have raised to obtain signatures for Arizona's Protect Arizona Now has been spent in Arizona to get signatures." Again, he told us we didn't give Protect Arizona Now a dime, and on his own website, he's talking about every dime he gave them being accounted for. How many dimes exactly did Mr. Stein and FAIR give Protect Arizona Now that they're now denying? If you go to Mr. Stein's own website, you will find that, quote, FAIR has committed $150,000 to help ensure that the Protect Arizona Now initiative is put before the state's voters in November. If you don't believe FAIR themselves on that number, you can also check their actual payments that were documented on the Arizona Secretary of State website. Quote, this is the official contribution filing from Protect Arizona Now. You can see there, April 1st, 2004, $50,000 from FAIR. Same day, $50,000 from the FAIR Congressional Task Force. May 11th, 2004, $25,500 from FAIR. Same day, $25,000 from the FAIR Congressional Task Force. June 11th, $50,000 from FAIR. Same day, $55,000 from the FAIR Congressional Task Force. A grand total of $255,500 paid from FAIR to Protect Arizona Now. That's on the Arizona Secretary of State's website. It's in the public record. But if you ask FAIR's Dan Stein about that,
first of all, we never gave that organization a dime.
You're lying when you say that. That wasn't the only thing that we need to correct the record on from this segment that we did last night. I want to be clear here, and to do so, I need to be a little bit blunt. I did not say anything factually incorrect in our interview last night. Not that we could find anyway in our big post-mortem fact check that we did on the interview today. But Dan Stein, the president of FAIR, was my guest, and I have always believed that an invitation to be a guest on this show is implicitly an assurance from me to you, the viewer, that the person in my guest chair is worth listening to. And so while I am not trying to be rude to Mr. Stein as a guest, and I know FAIR likes to represent itself as a credible source of information on the subjects they work on, I do feel the need to correct the record on several statements that Dan Stein made on this show as if they were fact, that were actually flat-out lies, or were at least misleading. In addition to him lying flat out about funding that group Protect Arizona Now, there was another sort of weird moment where Dan Stein denied ever saying something that he was reported to have said. Here's how it went. In 1997, you did an interview with Tucker Carlson, and he was asked you to respond to this quote from somebody else who was on FAIR's board of directors. And the quote he was asked you to respond to was this: "It would be better to encourage the breeding of more intelligent people rather than less intelligent." He said that in the context of expressing his alarm about people in other countries reproducing too much. Your response to that was, let me just finish the question and then you can answer. It works every night. I try it. Trust me. She says, your response to that was, yeah, so what? What is your problem with that? Should we be subsidizing people with low IQs to have as many children as possible and not subsidizing those with high ones? Did you not say that? Was that a misquote from Tucker?
No, I didn't say that. It's an absolute misquote. Tucker Carlson's admitted that most of the quotes in there were twisted and misquotes.
The article with that quote that I just confronted Mr. Stein with was published in the Wall Street Journal in 1997. It does not appear that a correction was ever printed, nor does there appear to be in any publicly available record any retraction of those quotes by the author of that piece, who is Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker Carlson is somebody I used to work with here at MSNBC. So he's somebody who I have a lot of respect for, despite our political differences. Today, we put in a message to Tucker's office to find out if he's ever admitted in some off-the-record venue that those creepy Dan Stein quotes were all wrong, even though he never, as far as we could tell, publicly retracted those quotes. That would have been a strange and out-of-character thing to do. Tucker's a real journalist, and I would not expect him to operate that way. So far, we haven't directly heard back from Tucker. I will let you know if we do. For what it's worth, Tucker's article, including those creepy eugenicsy Dan Stein quotes, was entered into the congressional record by Republican Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas. Also, for what it's worth, Dan Stein agreed to appear on 2 different shows hosted by Tucker Carlson in the years after Tucker supposedly so egregiously misquoted him. And at no time during those appearances did Mr. Stein reference Tucker egregiously misquoting him. In addition to denying his own quotes, Dan Stein also attempted to deny an overtly racist quote that I cited from the founder of his organization, FAIR. The founder's name is John Tanton. He has argued for the advancement of a European-American majority. He's warned white people not to cede power to other ethnic groups who breed
Wait. Where's the evidence of that? You said you made a statement. What's the source of that about him publicly advocating a European-American Union?
It was a European-American majority, not a European-American Union. I think that was just Mr. Stein misspeaking. But the source of that Aryan vision, as Mr. Stein is surely aware, is at the Bentley Historical Library in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Back in 1984, John Tanton donated all of his personal files to that library. As they put it, he donated 15 linear feet of his papers. Located in box 15 of this collection are 20 folders full of John Tanton's correspondence, including this letter to a fellow member of FAIR. Quote, "I've come to the point of view that for European-American society and culture to persist requires a European-American majority, and a clear one at that." Dan Stein's excuse for that sort of language last night was that was decades ago. Who cares? It doesn't reflect FAIR now. But John Tanton, who is, after all, the founder of FAIR, the "we need a European-American majority" guy, he remains on FAIR's board of directors today. And it's not just old racist-sounding rhetoric from FAIR's founder, who's now a member of their board of directors. It's also the staff of FAIR, hired recently. This is not guilt by association. This is just guilt. FAIR decided to hire Joseph Turner to be their Western region representative just a few years ago in 2006. Mr. Turner is on record saying stuff like this, quote, "I'll be damned if I'm going to sit back and watch my state turn into a third world cesspool. I consider accusations of bigotry and racism to be complimentary." And, quote, "I can make the argument that just because one believes in white separatism, that does not make them a racist." That guy was on FAIR's payroll as recently as 2007. He's not a vague associate of FAIR from the distant past. He is FAIR, as was Rick Oltmann, shown here at a White Citizens Council meeting. I'm sorry, a Conservative Citizens Council meeting. I forgot they changed their name. You want to see the Council of Conservative Citizens website? We showed you this last night. Erectus walks amongst us, with a mock-up image that's supposed to, I guess, be a cross between a black person and an ape. Here again, Rick Oltmann, in his capacity as a FAIR employee at the Erectus Walks Amongst Us Conservative Citizens Council, along with Virginia Abernathy of the aforementioned Protect Arizona Now. Again, this is not guilt by association. This is guilt. Saying FAIR is associated with its own founder, with its own board, with its own employees, with its own president, who was our guest last night, is like saying I'm associated with Rachel Maddow. If it matters to an understanding of FAIR's work, including writing Arizona's Papers, Please law, if it matters to an understanding of what they do, that FAIR is connected with the really fringe white supremacist and white separatist movements in this country, the way you document that is by finding out if the group's founder and board and employees and president and funders and the people it funds are tied up in those movements. And it turns out in FAIR's case, they really, really are. The white supremacist movement and white separatist movements in this country are not big movements. They are really fringe. They are really radical. And frankly, they're really weird. Being hooked up with people associated with that fringe of the fringe is not normal conservative politics. This is a tiny radical rump that's been around for a long time in American politics. But it is what FAIR is all tied up in. The reason the new Arizona immigration law is a subject of national discussion is because it appears to be very focused on race. If you want to know if this Arizona bill is as much about race as it seems, it is germane to look at who wrote the bill and what their motivations might be. FAIR has a moderate reputation, has a moderate mainstream reputation, but when your board of directors, your founder, your early funders, your president, and your staff are all tied up with this far, far right, tiny rump white supremacist and white separatist movement in this country, you are a lot of things, but you are not mainstream. And it ought to affect our national understanding about what this Arizona bill is and what it means.